Welcome back, Monday Night Lights, another week, another show. Alongside Louis Schaefer, I'm Tim Hoffmeister.
Yep, we're back.
We're going to start off tonight with the NBA Finals, then we'll move on to some NHL, MLB, and finish with some NFL. The Finals have just ended, and the Warriors ended up winning the series 4-2 after being down 2-1. It was a great series, and I'm not going to brag, but I called it.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest key was in the series, Louis?
What was that?
What do you think the biggest key was in the series?
Oh, wow. I think the biggest key was Steve Kerr. You know, the fact that, Iguodala, we mentioned this last week, is going to play his 25, 30 minutes a game regardless. But the fact that Steve Kerr made the decision to get him in the starting lineup and go with the small lineup, that was huge. That was what changed the whole series.
Yeah, I agree with you partly. I mean, yeah, it was Steve Kerr, but I think it was the players that bought into Kerr's culture. Like, Iguodala started every game before going to the Warriors, but he believed in what Steve Kerr was going for, and then he was like, all right, I'll come off the bench. David Lee, he had to come off the bench, didn't really get any minutes until the finals. They say, all right, you're in, and he played like he's been playing before his injury, before he was sat. I think it was real key on the players buying into what Steve Kerr was trying to do. Even Bogut, I mean, when Iguodala got put in the lineup, Bogut kept getting less minutes, and he was still gave it his all when he had the chance to get minutes, and he was still relatively happy because he knew if it was the right thing for the team, he'd be getting a championship out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a major factor. But I mean, obviously, you can't win without players playing well regardless. And your X factor, Iguodala, was huge, especially in Klay Thompson did not play a factor at all, and a lot of people anticipated that he'd be because Kyrie and Klay were supposed to be, the X factors because of Curry and LeBron kind of canceling each other out. But, he didn't do much at all in the series.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at, like, obviously you had LeBron scoring close to 40 every night, and then eventually when Curry got hot, he was scoring 30 every night, so they were basically canceling each other out. You needed other guys to step up. Like you said, most people thought Kyrie and Thompson because they're like the second-hand guys to the stars. But Kyrie went down. Thompson, other than that one game, didn't shoot all that well. And Iguodala had the chance to step up, and he did. And, I mean, I was very happy to see him, as a former Sixer, have great success and get a championship. I was even happier because I called him as my X Factor. But, I mean, hey, they needed a guy to step up on defense, and he was that guy. And I give him a lot of credit for buying into Steve Kerr's culture, and I give a lot of credit to Steve Kerr for getting his players to buy into the culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's a winning mentality, I guess you could say. Players. If you get the right group of guys, they want to win. They don't care how they do it. They want to win. And the Warriors are that kind of team. And then you look across the court from them, and there's guys like J.R. Smith, who are not that type of player at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the Warriors built their team with with unselfish players, great unselfish players. And Steve Kerr, it helped that he was able to get them to buy into his culture because he's a winner. He's been on the 3 most winningest teams in NBA history.
Yeah. I think that was a factor too when they Mark Jackson played for the Knicks a little bit, but I think he won a title with the Knicks. But this is Steve Kerr. Even if you didn't know he played with Jordan. That's one. and he's, like you said, he's won. So, kind of like the Pat Riley factor when they said, I forget who it was. I want to say it wasn't one of the big three. I want to say it was like Mike Miller or Ray Allen or something. When they signed with Miami, Pat Riley laid all his rings on the table and was able to say, well, you can have one of these if you come here. I think that was the kind of thing with Steve Kerr. I got all of these rings from playing with the Bulls. Yeah, 23 did most of the work, but...
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think just having a guy who won before and with all this success in the regular season, it made it easy for him to make the lineup change. Just be like, all right, I'm making this change, and it's because I think it's the best chance to win. And when you haven't won before, you're obviously going to listen to the guy who has.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is he's won, and Steph Curry at that point had. So you're going to listen to whatever the guy that's won says. And I think it helps when all your players are under contract. You can't piss one off so badly that they walk in free agency because they're locked in for next year unless you trade them. But that's just, he made the right lineup change, and it changed the whole landscape of the series.
Yeah, and it really put a damper on LeBron and his legacy. He's now 2-4 in finals. I mean, 2 losses. He's 0-2 with the Cavs. And now you're looking at him, and it's always LeBron and Jordan, the talk between who's the best, who's the greatest in the world, who's the greatest basketball player ever. And do you think this loss definitely puts the argument to rest, or do you think LeBron still has a fighting chance?
I think he still has a fighting chance. I mean, he's, 30, 29, 31.
I think around there, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he can still, I don't know if he walks out with 6 rings, but, it's tough. I mean, the NBA is different than it was when Jordan played. Obviously, it was tougher to play the game when Jordan played. You see some of the fouls that LeBron's getting compared to what Jordan didn't get called. It's, night and day. LeBron, for as much crap as he gets for needing all-star teammates to succeed, he won 2 games with Dellavedova. And even that aside, you look back when Jordan played, and there was the Bulls with Jordan, there was the Knicks with Ewing. There was more than 1 or 2 teams in the East that could potentially win the East. You didn't have a team under 500 getting into the playoffs. So while LeBron has the easier road to the finals than Jordan did, at the same time, the West is battle-tested by the time they get to play LeBron or whoever comes out of the East. Whoever wins the West, you saw with Golden State this year, beat an upstart Pelicans team, beat the Grizzlies, who were a tough team to play, and then beat the Rockets, who were the number 2 team in the West, and went to war with all of them. And the Western Conference teams, you can tell, have an edge on the Eastern Conference teams because they've been playing meaningful games the entire postseason. They didn't get an easy first round matchup playing a team that's under 500 like the Cavs did with Boston. So on that aspect, I think LeBron still has a fighting chance because it's, and you said something, it's completely different eras. There's just too much different from then to now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think LeBron's legacy will be he was the greatest player in his era. I don't think he would... I mean, people are still going to make the argument that he is, but I think Jordan still is the best player to ever play. because no matter which way you attack the argument, I think it's got to go Jordan's way. I mean, even if you take away LeBron's 2 championships with the Cavs when he had no one, he's still 2-2, and I think the Heat teams were better than the Bulls teams.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can make that argument, but I mean, Jordan also never had, he had Pippen and Rodman in the prime of their careers. LeBron had Dwayne Wade, who, I mean, while he's good, I'm not going to take anything away from Dwayne Wade, but he had the bum knees, and Chris Bosh, obviously, we find out now that he was sick, So, it's one of those things where you don't want to make excuses for the guy if the argument is LeBron versus Jordan. But I still think he has a shot to do it if he's beating. With me will be, if he's beating the really good teams in the West in the finals. You look, if there's a surprise, like let's say the Pelicans had knocked off the Warriors this year and went all the way, and then LeBron beat the Pelicans. They deserve, they're in the finals, whatever, but it's not the best team from the West. If he starts knocking off powerhouses from the West, I think he's up there, but it's something we'd have to revisit when that time comes, if it even comes.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like, Jordan basically had the Western Conference when he was in his prime. He was going through Patrick Ewing. He had to go through the Rockets teams. I mean, either they were on the Western Conference, but still had to play them.
You still have the Pistons.
Oh, yeah, the Bad Boys. And
Celtics were still, there was a lot of heat.
I agree with what you're saying there. But, I mean, you can't argue 6-0 in finals.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a huge thing.
And especially when you look at, like, how he did it. Like, he was the star, and you knew, like, you just, like, going into a final against, if you were playing the Bulls, you just knew it wasn't going to end well. Because you had Jordan, and you saw when LeBron had to make a game-winning shot in the finals, he couldn't do it. I mean, even though they went on to win one of the games, he couldn't do it. But Jordan, it was just the anniversary of him making the game six shot to win the finals. Like, there's just something about it just seems different to me when looking at him. It seems like Jordan has that killer instinct when it comes to, like, all right, it's time to take over the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what separates them in my book, is that, LeBron put the lost finals aside, he can't close out as well as Jordan did. You look, and what series was it? I mean, the finals against the Spurs that the Heat won, that went 7. There were games there that LeBron could have taken where it doesn't go 7 if he's playing with a killer instinct. He doesn't have that, so that's what separates them in my book. But everything else, I feel LeBron could still make a case for catching him.
Oh, yeah, I agree. There's always a case. I mean, people still make a case for Kobe, even though I don't think it's very valid. I just look at both of them, and I think even when LeBron was with the Heat and he had Bosh and Wade, he still struggled taking over games. And I think looking at that, that doesn't help him.
Yeah, and I think the issue with that in my mind, and it was a little better this year in Cleveland, I guess, because, Kyrie's younger, Kevin Love, while he was the star of a team, it was the Timberwolves. And you saw it in Cleveland this year, and it was a little bit better. But in Miami, there was the bit of uncertainty, like, whose team is it? When the Bulls had Pippen and Rodman, there was never that uncertainty. It was Jordan's team.
Yeah, and
it was always Jordan's team. And
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Jordan, it's always going to be Jordan's team. Even when Jordan was playing baseball, the Bulls were still known as Jordan's team.
Yeah.
Um, another pressing issue
Even the Toon Squad.
Yeah, even that's right. He ran the Toon Squad. I'm still waiting for that Space Jam 2. They're talking about that. That'd be something. Maybe Bugs Bunny will be the star of that team. On Thursday, the NBA draft will take place with the Sixers picking third and the New York Knicks picking fourth. So since it's on Thursday, we might as well give our predictions about who we think our teams will take. Who do you think the Knicks are going to take?
Emmanuel Mudiay. I'm sold on him. I think you guys are, from what I'm reading, is Russell. I don't see the two top big men not going to Minnesota and Los Angeles. So, Emmanuel Mudiay. And it makes it even better when I've seen comparisons to, like, John Wall, that style of player. Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Mudiay is a very good young player with a lot of potential. I do still want the Sixers to take Russell. There has been talk of the Lakers taking him, which means then I would probably want the Sixers to take Okafor, who would probably be there, because it seems like Towns is a lock at number one. And then probably just move Okafor for maybe future picks, a player and a pick. I mean, there's so much you can do with a top-notch player like that. Kind of like the Pelicans did with Noel to get Drew Holiday. That's if the Lakers take Russell, but I believe they will take Okafor, and from the looks of it, Hinkie will take Russell because he is versatile guard. He can play the 2 and the 1, and he is one of the best pure shooters in the draft. And that's the reason why we have got rid of Carter Williams, got rid of Holiday, is because they weren't top-notch shooters. And Russell is projected to be a very good shooter, and even if he misses, we're set up to get the rebound. So it just makes sense to me. Almost too much sense, which scares me. But we'll see what Hinkie does. I think he'll take Russell, and I think he might make a move with his future picks to either get into the draft again, the first round again, or for a player.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, you talk about Hinkie worrying you. I read a thing about the Knicks that they're talking to, like, the back end of the first round. The San Antonios, Houston, or actually, no, because Houston doesn't have a pick. The Lakers are back there.
Yeah, the Nets have Houston's pick.
Whoever's at the back. Yeah, the Nets. So they're talking to teams about potentially getting back into the late first or early second to get I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's the point guard out of Murray State.
Cameron Payne.
What was that?
Cameron Payne?
Yeah, Cameron Payne. So I've read that Phil's high on him because of his passing ability, which I guess makes sense because of, you have Carmelo and whoever you sign, so if you can get a guy just to run the offense, maybe put in 10 if you need him, I think that would work. And, obviously, the whole thing is there, you're giving up picks to get him, to get another pick, because the Knicks only have the first round of this year. You're giving up picks to get him, but at the same time, you can then move back from 4 to get a guy like Cauley-Stein and have Payne and Cauley-Stein with Melo, and then you take your chance of signing a LaMarcus Aldridge and who knows, Jimmy Butler for all I know. But then that's a solid starting 5. I mean, you got, that's the thing I like about Cauley-Stein. I was reading a scouting report on him, is that because he's older, he's more NBA ready. Before, where it would take a couple years for Okafor to get adjusted, they say Cauley-Stein, 1 playing in Kentucky and 2 playing there for 3 years, is so ready to come in right away and start and make an impact, as opposed to Okafor, which is more of a developmental piece. So I think that would make a lot of sense if they can get back into the first, and especially at 4. It's not like they're at 5 where there might be one of the top 4 guys there. There will be because it's top 4. You look then, a team could be looking to get whoever's left and give up a lot to get them, and get ahead of whoever's at 5.
I think
so
I think the Kings are at 6.
So it should be interesting.
And I mean,
I think it might be the Kings or the Nuggets or something.
Yeah, I mean, I heard.
But it should be interesting to see what the Knicks do.
Yeah, I heard that the Knicks are looking for a point guard. If they are getting Payne, trading down would be the best option. I do think Cauley Stein is overrated. That is just me. I actually do think Moody Eye is a little overrated too, just because it seems like they're relying on him and his potential, and he really didn't get many games under his belt this year in China. I think the fact that he didn't play much this year, plus they're relying on his potential, and he doesn't have much of a shot, I think it'll be a tough adjustment for him. And when he's 19 years old, if he struggles early, it comes with confidence things at that point. Cauley Stein doesn't really have much of an offensive game. I think if the Knicks get him, that'll be a good fit because you don't have to rely on his offense because Carmelo will be taking all the shots anyway. So, I mean, I do like that idea of getting Cauley Stein and Cameron Payne in the later end of the round, depending on who they sign.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing with the NBA as opposed to, say, the NFL is, teams have to draft based on what they have, which makes a team, the two that come to mind are the Lakers and Knicks, where I talked about it last show, they can literally flip the switch and become contenders because of the amount of money they have. But they have to draft like their team consists of what they have because they don't know what they're going to pull in free agency because it doesn't start until July 1st.
Yeah.
So
exactly, and that's what will help make it very interesting. There's been some trade rumors around the draft as well. I heard one that the Nuggets might try and trade up with the Kings and give the Kings Ty Lawson. David Lee's on the block, so maybe the Warriors might be moving up in the draft. If they do Lee the pick for a higher pick, I don't know how much value David Lee has anymore, especially with that contract, but you never know. The draft is going to be very exciting. It's close to the NFL draft, but not nearly as exciting or long, so that'll be good. That it's not as long, but it'll be very interesting and exciting, especially for Knicks and Sixers fans because we are supposed to get a star. That's what you're supposed to get in the top 5, but we'll see. Maybe the Sixers won't play their guy for another year.
Anybody hurt in this draft?
Yeah, we'll find them. I'm sure we will. We're gonna switch.
That'll be the second round pick.
Yeah. Well, we'll switch to the NHL right now with the finals being final. The Blackhawks win the series 4-2 as well after they were trailing 2-1 against the Lightning, and it's their 3rd cup in 6 years.
Yeah, this was huge. I'm willing to put the dynasty tag on them. Even though the NHL needs to do something about this, because if the Kings win next year, then it's just getting repetitive. But they deserved it. They had a good team. Good series by the Lightning. Similar to the Rangers last year, they're a young team that'll be back next year. Just hopefully not that far, because that would mean the Rangers aren't in it. Great series by both teams. I was happy with the result. Again, because the Tampa knocked out the Rangers. But I was happy to see Brad Richards get another ring. Patrick Kane, Jonathan Davis, that team is just, and Corey Crawford stepped up huge. He gets a lot of crap for not being as good as Quick, who wins every other cup that he doesn't win. Not being as good as Lundqvist, not being as good as, and, some other goalies in the league. But, like the rest of the Chicago team, they show up for the playoffs, and that's all that matters for them.
Yeah. Corey Crawford just has to do what he has to do. Doesn't have to try to do too much. Just give up less than 2 goals a game and 2 or less, and most likely the Blackhawks are going to win because they have that very strong core and very powerful offense around Tane and Kays, and that defense around Keith and Seabrook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you with the dynasty tag. It seems like dynasty tags are being thrown out a lot, but I think very rightfully so. With the Blackhawks and the Giants, there has been talk of them being a dynasty in baseball, and I think those 2 teams rightfully so. They've won the most cups in the less amount of years, so I think it's fitting. And yeah, it was upsetting to see the Blackhawks win because after the 2010 finals, I kind of got sour towards them, but I did like to see Timonen win the cup. It was a very special moment for him, and I'm very happy for him.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Even as a Ranger fan, I was happy for him that Taves gave him the cup. Yeah, that was awesome.
It was not as exciting as when Gagne won the cup with the Kings, because I was actually cheering for the Kings that year, but it's very good to see former Flyers, and especially a great hockey guy and a great person, win it.
Yeah, he deserved it.
We're going to switch to the MLB right now with the power rankings. Only the top 10 were released by Buster Olney. They'll be released after we release the show on Monday. So if you want to check them out, they'll be on ESPN.com. Number 1 is the Cardinals at 41-21. 2 is Kansas City at 39-27. 3 is Houston at 41-30. 4 is Tampa Bay at 40-31. 5 are the Pirates at 39-30. 6 is the Giants at 38-31. 7 is the Dodgers at 38-32. 8 is the Yankees at 38-31. 9 is the Blue Jays at 37-34, and 10 are the Orioles at 36-33.
Yeah. I agree with all these. Even though Houston, because of cheating, should make the case that they're better than the Cardinals anyway. But Tampa has been a surprise as of late. They've gotten really hot lately. And especially for a team that, every year people seem to count them out because they end up trading someone. This year it was Myers, and Price at the deadline last year. But, and losing Joe Madden too, who he seemed to be like the mastermind behind the whole thing. And they're just continuing to do business as usual. I don't think it'll a run for their money, and the fact the Yankees can get whoever they want makes it difficult for Tampa. But they're going to be in it, and they're a huge surprise this year.
Yeah, the whole AL East, other than the Red Sox, are in the power rankings and are playing extremely well. Not extremely well lately, as the Orioles have won, I believe, 9 out of their last 11 or something like that. The Blue Jays have been hitting the leather off the ball. The Yankees just always seem to stick around. They got Tanaka and our favorite guy, A-Rod, who has a bounce-back year. So the AL East, towards the end of the year, if it stays a 4-team race, will be very exciting, and they may end up with 2 wildcard teams.
Yeah. The problem that they're going to run into, though, is, with the wild card, is that Detroit's going to be in there. Minnesota's fallen off a bit, so I'm not really going to put them into the wild card race again yet. But, you look at the AL West, too. If Anaheim and Seattle start playing to their capability, and Houston's hanging around. So the AL is loaded, as far as at the top of each division. There's so many teams that could win a wild card, and there's only going to be 2 of them. So that wild card race is going to be interesting come August.
Yeah, it's going to be very fun to watch. And it's crazy how, you're thinking, oh, there's only going to be 2 wildcard teams. There's so many other great teams that could have made it. But think about 3 years ago, it would only been in one wild card team. That would have been even worse for us baseball fans.
Oh, yeah.
One bright spot for the Red Sox, even though there hasn't been many this year, is David Ortiz, that he just passed Stan Musial and Willie Stargell and is now 29th on the all-time home runs list with 476.
Yeah, and I think he's 24 away from 500. So, he's a weird situation because I'm never really sure where he lands among players all time, but he's, I would put him as high as number 2 as far as Red Sox behind Ted Williams, and that's the weird thing with him is that he's, 2, 3 behind Ted Williams and whoever else you want to put in front of him, as far as Red Sox, but as far as all-time players, he's not, that big of a deal, I guess you could say. He's a big deal in the Boston community.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the only reason I think he's not up there in all-time players, I mean, obviously great hitter, but when you think of best players of all time, it's more than just hitting. You got to look at an all-around player. Yeah. Ortiz was kind of the first guy I remember that really was a full-time DH. He really kind of outlined what a DH should be. And I think among all-time DHs, he's probably number 1. I think he is the best Red Sox of all time, only because he broke the curse of the Bambino, was able to bring so much to that city. So I think he was a great player for the Red Sox. I think he's a great DH. But, I mean, when you look at it, he's not one of the top 50 greatest players of all time. But I think what he did for Boston and the Red Sox fans, you can't overlook.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with him is that he's been a DH his entire career. It's not like he was in the NL and couldn't play the field, so Boston brought him into DH. He was in Minnesota as a DH too before he came to Boston. So it's not like Boston saw something. This guy, and when he plays first, it's horrendous. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, they knew he was going to be a DH because of his brute power and his terrible fielding, and I think you got to give him credit for being such a great DH because it's hard to be a DH. I was reading an article once, and there's an interview with a former DH, and he said it's tough DHing because if you're just a regular position player, you might strike out, but you can make it up in the field, and that's the way some baseball players work. Whereas if you're a DH, you got 4 chances to prove yourself, and you better do it.
Yeah, that's how you make your salary.
Yeah.
That.
Well, I'll tell you one guy who's really making a salary is Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. He signed that huge 7-year, technically 14-year deal, and he just pitched a no-hitter. Yeah, that was huge. Don't even get me started on this. Should have been a perfect game, but I'm sure we'll get to that. Oh, yeah.
He's just been dominant lately. Strasburg's been banged up. Zimmerman is still pitching to his capability. But then you look at Fister and Gio Gonzalez, and I don't know if it's pitching lower in the rotation is in their heads or what, but they haven't been as good as they were last year. Scherzer has just been so dominant that it's picking up the slack for the rest of the team. And with that entire team being banged up in one way or another, he's just been huge. He's definitely worth the money so far.
Yeah, I believe in his last 18 innings pitch, he's given up 1 hit. 1 walk, and 1 hit batsman. And I know how you feel on that just by your comments were. So I'll let you get something off your chest real quick. You think it was a lean in? You think it should have been disallowed, or?
It was so clear that it was a lean in my opinion. He had 2 strikes on him. The Nationals won by 6. that's a pitch, and I know you don't want to give up an at bat, but I forget who it was.
That got hit?
No. Played for Tampa in 2008 when Lidge was in the game you guys clinched, and he kind of just flailed at it.
Eric Kinsky, when we struck him out?
Yeah. And you're down by 6. The guy's got 2 strikes on you, and I'm not saying you give up, but I mean, just flail at it. You're not gonna come back anyway. But it was so he leaned into it so badly. And on 2 strikes too. He's just trying to pitch inside.
So do you think the umpire should have called a strike on that for him leaning in? Because I believe it is the rule is that if you lean in on a pitch, that it's an automatic strike.
I think he should have, but I think a no-hitter is a big deal anyway. Obviously, you'd like to have the perfect game, but a no-hitter is a big deal anyway, especially for Scherzer, who I don't think has thrown one before this.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, so, you'd rather have the perfect game than a no-hitter, but both of them are a big deal. I think Scherzer would have been mad, though, if, he hit him, and then if he hit him, and then he was like, okay, whatever, I lost the no-hitter. I lost the perfect game, let me get the no-hitter. But then the umpire stands up and makes it a perfect game. I think Scherzer would have been more pissed off if that happened than just getting the next guy and celebrating the no-hitter.
Yeah, I mean, he is a gamer, and he probably was more mad at himself than Jose Tabata. But
yeah,
I think looking at, obviously, MLB has that big thing about unwritten rules. And you were kind of hinted at it earlier when 2 strikes down by 6. He's best pitcher in the game. You haven't gotten anything off him already this game. So, what does he get out of leaning in? Do you think that he went against the unwritten rules of baseball by leaning in, or do you think he was okay in leaning in? Do you think he really went against baseball etiquette?
Yeah, those silly unwritten rules. I think he was against baseball unwritten rules. Like I said, it's a big deal either way. But it's not. It's Jose Tabata. It's not like it's an everyday player that needs that wants his stats to look good. So yeah, he'll take the hit to get his on base percentage up. Jose Tabata doesn't play every day. It was. I think he went against those unwritten rules and leaning into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's up for debate. I believe it might... I mean, yeah, you want to do what you can for the team, but leaning in for it with 2 outs at the bottom of the 9th, what does it really do for your team? Are you going to be able to make a 2-out rally for 7 runs to win the game? Probably not. I definitely think it goes against the etiquette. If listeners out there want to tell your opinion, tell us what you think about it, feel free to tweet at us. Tell us on the website. We'd be glad to hear from you. Do you think Max Scherzer is the best pitcher in the MLB now?
I'm willing to put him there, yes. And this is a Mets fan saying that, and I have Harvey. But I'm willing to put him there. I mean, you see a lot of guys when they switch leagues in free agency struggle in the first year, and that has not been the case at all. He's something special, man. He's, saying this in hindsight because Kershaw could have a second half revival and become Kershaw again. And change my complete opinion of everything ever constructed in baseball. But yeah, I'd have to put Scherzer right now as the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's probably the best pitcher in baseball. But if I was gonna have to take a pitcher to start my team around, I'd most likely take Kershaw because he's younger. But Scherzer is no doubt the best pitcher. I think Kershaw is a close second. but you can't argue with the results the past, how many years? 4 years, I'd say. And I'm sure the Diamondbacks are kicking themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Alex Rodriguez, it seems like we can't go a show without talking about him. He gets number 3,000, hit number 3,000, and it was a home run. He's only the second player to hit a home run for his 3,000th hit, and he joins fellow teammate and fellow Yankee Derek Jeter.
Yeah. I mean, the common theme as we've been bringing him up the last couple of shows is, you want to be happy for him, but at the same time you don't want to because it's tainted. This one I have a different perspective on, personally. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but I did this in my speech in Cole's class freshman year. It's hard to hit a baseball, Whether you're on steroids or not, it's hard to hit a baseball coming at you at 98, 99, 100 miles an hour with a stick. So this accomplishment, maybe you make the argument that some of the home runs would have steroids, but he'd eventually get to 3,000 anyway. Because then you're taking in he doesn't get busted last year if he's not on steroids, so he's eventually hitting 3,000 anyway.
Yeah.
So this one I'm willing to give him a lot of credit for because it's obviously tough to hit 3,000 hits. And it's not something that is steroid influenced. Hitting a ball takes skill. I don't care if you're cheating or not.
Yeah, I agree. I was just about to touch on that before you did. Steroids enhance your strength and your strength and hitting ability. Like, it'll be able to let you hit the ball farther. But you still need hand-eye coordination and a ton of talent and technique to hit a ball. I mean, Barry Bonds, he became the all-time home runs leader because of steroids. But if he didn't take steroids, he still would be hitting the ball. It just wouldn't be out of the ballpark. So I think you got to give A-Rod a lot of credit on 3,000 because that's all hand-eye coordination and that's all just being a good hitter. Steroids helps him hit the 600 and whatever home runs he has now, but actually getting 3,000 hits, it all goes down to hand-eye coordination. And I think you got to give him credit on this accomplishment, and I think that's probably the only one he'll get credit on.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing is that my mom showed me a picture of sent me an article from a paper in New York because she's there this weekend, and for this one they're giving him credit for because, like you said, hand-eye coordination. Steroids aren't going to help him hit the ball. So, this one they're giving him credit for. They're giving crap to John Sterling for saying, just like Jeter, he does it with a home run. But, they're giving A-Rod a lot of credit in New York. And this is one of them that it sucks that the Yankees can't use it for advertising. Because it doesn't matter either way. He hit 3,000 at this point. Part of it's because he plays till he's 40, but, we'll leave that as it is. But, he would have done this regardless, whether he was on steroids or not.
Yeah, I agree there. And like you said earlier, you said it's very hard to hit a baseball, but one pitcher that makes it really easy to hit a baseball, Dylan G, has been outrighted by the Mets to AAA.
Yeah, good riddance. He's a mess. Maybe the outrighting will help him. I talked about this with you before we started recording. The Mets at this point have the rotation set. For next year, come the All-Star break, you're looking at a rotation that involves Harvey DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, and Steve Matz coming up once either Nice gets traded or someone gets hurt. So the Mets now need guys that just kind of sit in AAA, similar to what R.A. Dickey was doing for us before we called him up. Sit in AAA until you're needed. If someone goes down, then we call them up instead of having to start a guy like Carlos Torres. Mets. The Mets need guys that just go to AAA, pitch every day, and if someone gets hurt, whose turn is it in the rotation down in Vegas, and we'll call them up for the day to replace whoever got hurt and make the spot start.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dylan G can maybe get it back, and AAA can help him. You see a bunch of guys get called down to AAA, and then it seems like those coaches down there, especially pitching coaches, know what they're doing and really help guys fix their stuff. And it's a possibility. I mean, they outrighted him anyway, so if he doesn't, he'll just sit in AAA anyway. They have plenty of pitching depth. They don't need him to get any better. It's just a bonus if he does.
Yeah, and while we're on the Mets, I saw a tweet from a couple days ago. I forget which beat reporter it was, but it was for the Mets, and made an interesting point, and I'm sure we'll talk about this probably another episode soon. But with the trade deadline coming up at the end of July, the one guy tweeted, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you lose out on the Hamill sweepstakes? Can I interest you in a cheaper John Neese?"
Yeah, I mean, that's all he is now. He'd just be a depth guy, a team looking for a 4 or 5 starter, just more pitching depth. And the Mets would have to eat some money if they want to move him, and you wouldn't really get much of a prospect back.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't get much for him. Maybe they get a little more because he's a lefty, but I'm not anticipating them getting the next big position player like the Cubs got for Samardzija with Russell.
Yeah.
I'm not anticipating that at all. But if they could get a decent guy. I look to the Mets team now. Dilson Herrera was picked up from Arlenberg in August. So, if they can get one of those guys that maybe develops into a good player, fine. Get rid of John Neese, get Steve Matz up to the major leagues.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We're going to switch to some NFL right now, and a very weird story that I didn't know if I should put on the outline or not, but Rob and Rex Ryan may have possibly been mixed up at birth.
How do they even think this? They look so much alike.
Yeah, well, obviously because they're twins. So then apparently one was born 5 minutes before the other. I believe it was Rob, and they may have just been named differently or have the wrong birth certificate. So Rob Ryan may be coaching the Bills right now.
So this is the first time I've seen this story. So Rex thinks he might be Rob.
I don't know if it's
and vice versa?
Yeah, that's what I believe. It was an interview with Rex Ryan, and he was telling stories about his family, and that's one of the stories that the family has, is that they may have mixed up.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. So Rex Ryan's in the news for a lot of things. I definitely didn't think that would be one of them. And there's not really much to talk about there, but I figured it was weird and a little funny, so I figured to put it in there.
Especially when we were recording on Father's Day. Buddy screwed up.
Yeah. That's not the only thing he screwed up, but that's definitely, we're not going to start there now. Marcus Mariota, there's a conspiracy theory about him, and it fits with the Eagles because every single quarterback that was drafted has signed, except for Marcus Mariota. There is a theory out there that possibly he has not signed because he wants to play for his former coach, Chip Kelly. I don't know how true that is, but there's a possibility, and Adam Schefter even tweeted about it. So, if you thought it was over with Chip and Mariota, it may have just begun.
Oh, jeez. I saw the tweet that he hadn't signed yet. But, oh, man, I thought it was just kind of, maybe they're not matching up on the money. Oh, man.
Well, that's what I thought, too, at first. But when you look at the new rookie wage scale, the money in the years is set. You can't budge. So,
yeah, true.
At that point, it seems, then it really starts to get confusing. Why? Because if he doesn't sign with the Titans and ends up signing with the Eagles somehow, he's not going to get that money. But unless he thinks that he can't play in any other system other than Chip's, or maybe Chip has been trying to convince him. Maybe he wants Mariota to hold out until they're just like, all right, we'll just get Bradford for him, and then throw in like a couple picks. Maybe, I'm not really sure. I think Mariota just wants to go through camp, not worry about it. I'm not really sure. That's up for our listeners to take a guess on and think about themselves. If you like conspiracy theories, I'm not really big into them, so I'm going to have to say Mariota's probably going to sign with the Titans.
Yeah, I don't see him not signing with the Titans. I mean, obviously they didn't give up anything to get him other than just being plain terrible. But, you gotta think at least a little bit that it seems to me like a John Elway situation almost when he was drafted, where he used the Yankees and potentially playing baseball, but he wouldn't sign with Baltimore called at the time, and they traded him to Denver, went on to have Hall of Fame career, yada yada yada. And you look at the rumors leading up to the draft, and it was, the Eagles will have to give up Fletcher Cox and Michael Kendricks and all these picks to get Mariota. And at that point, it didn't make sense. But you talk about now, the Eagles would have to give significantly less up for Mariota if something were to go down here. And he turned around and said, well, I don't want to sign with you. I want to be in Philly. You get him for significantly less than Michael Kendricks, Fletcher Cox, and every pick in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if this is true, it definitely hurts the Titans way more than it hurts the Eagles now, because of it would cost less because Mariota doesn't seem like they're going to play for him anyway.
Yeah, and the thing that's going to be worrisome, I guess, and they're going to obviously investigate this if anything goes down, is if there's any tampering. Because obviously Chip and Mariota have the connection through Oregon, and but there's going to be a lot looking into this of whether it was after Chip decided that he couldn't trade up for him, or if it was more recently, or if it was during the combine and pro day process. If Chip might have hinted at it, like, hey, don't sign, and then maybe you could come to me.
Yeah, I mean, the tampering, if it's proved, if this whole thing is true, would be devastating for the Eagles, so hopefully it's not. But yeah, no doubt there'd be an investigation if this conspiracy theory becomes truth.
Oh, yeah. And Tennessee would riot. You don't hear that often with a town like Tennessee, but they probably spent a buttload on jerseys.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So we're gonna talk about some quarterback battles as they have been starting to heat up in OTAs, and we won't officially know the starters until at least August. So I just wanted to give some quarterback battles, and I wanted to see your take on them.
Okay.
The Eagles, Bradford versus Sanchez.
I think the Eagles go Bradford, more money, and he's a better decision maker than Sanchez. So I think he's got the higher upside. If Mariota's not in the fold, which I'm assuming he's not, to be a higher upside quarterback for Chip long term.
Yeah, I agree. The battle really isn't between Bradford and Sanchez in my mind, even though it may be on the field. It's between Bradford and his knee. If Bradford is healing well, I think he has no chance of losing it. But if he doesn't heal well, it may have to come down to Sanchez.
And roster quarterback battle on your team, because you can't forget about Barkley and Tebow.
Oh no, we can. It's the Cleveland Browns, Johnny Manziel versus Josh McCown.
I'm gonna look up their schedule real quick just so I have some reference here.
That works, and I'll tell you who I think. I think it will go to Josh McCown, mainly because I feel like Manziel really soured himself with the Browns organization last year, and I think they're going to want him to prove himself to them during this year. And Josh McCown has shown he can play. He's a little older, so I think they'll give him the job and try and let Manziel mature even more under him.
All right, here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going with McCown. But at the same time, I'm going to take, at the Rams, Johnny's taking over.
What week is that? 4?
Week 7.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm looking at their schedule, and I don't see they open up in New York against the Jets. That's an iffy game because I'm not sold on Geno. Then they go to Tennessee. Then they are home for Tennessee and home for Oakland. They could potentially be, and then after that, it's San Diego and Baltimore on the road, and then Denver in Cleveland. The highest I see them at that point is 3-3. They could potentially be 1-5 or even 0-6. I think at that point they might get beat down by Denver so badly that they finally pull the trigger and bring in Johnny.
Yeah.
For week 7.
I see where you're going there because, fans are going to be calling for it just like they call for Tebow. Because fans are annoying. I know, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But, I just see McCown winning the job first and then them making a decision later in the year if the Browns fans really want it.
He's got the higher upside. They rushed to sign him. I think that's going to be a factor. They made sure they got him, then got Hoyer afterwards. So obviously I think O'Brien sees Mallett as the franchise quarterback in Houston. He's got the better arm, and, he's younger than Hoyer. So I see it coming, him winning it, and I don't see Savage as much of a factor at all. I think it'll sort out Mallett, Hoyer, Savage.
Yeah, I'm going to flip one there. I think it'll be Hoyer, Mallett, and then Savage. I think Savage was brought in by Bill O'Brien, but the injury last year hurt him. They signed Hoyer even though they traded for Mallett, so I think Hoyer already has the upper hand. And I think he's been able to win games with a not-so-great roster with the Browns. So I think he'll have the upper hand, but Ryan Mallett is a tall guy who can throw the ball. So I think that'll be one of the most interesting quarterback battles, and I'm going to give it to Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I think they have Hard Knocks too this year, so it should be interesting how that plays out.
I'm just excited to see J.J. Watt.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
The Buffalo Bills, we have Matt Castle versus E.J. Manuel.
See, this one was interesting, and I had to think about this. I don't see either of them winning it, honestly. I think Tyrod Taylor's going to win it.
Really?
Yeah, I think, Rex is very open on offense. He's in charge of the defense. He's still a glorified D coordinator that's labeled as a head coach. So I think he's open to everything, and they have a very fast team. And, while Manuel and Taylor are both quick, Taylor's got a better arm. So I think what it comes down to is that team is so fast that you have guys. Obviously, you have Shady in the backfield, but you have guys in Harvin and Watkins that can stretch the field in no time. So I think it might be Taylor.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. However, I think he'll go with Manuel because Tyrod Taylor is very fast, does have a pretty good arm, but Manuel is much bigger than him. And he didn't play terrible when he was the starter of the Bills. He just didn't play as good as they wanted him to. So I think I'll give it to Manuel because they're going to rely on the run game and the defense. So Manuel's not going to have to do too much. And I think Rex Ryan's very good with young quarterbacks, and I think he'll be able to make EJ Manuel a serviceable quarterback for the team that he wants to build.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Hopefully EJ Manuel doesn't run into his offensive lineman's ass.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Rex Ryan teams like to do that. Speaking of Rex Ryan's former teams and the butt fumble, we'll go to the New York Jets, where they'll have Geno Smith, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and newcomer Bryce Petty.
Yeah, this one I had to get some insight from my brother on. He's my resident Jets expert for me. I think it'll be Geno. You know, he's only 2 years removed from being a second-round pick. You know, and he's finally got legitimate weapons. I mean, Decker's back to where he's comfortable as a number 2 receiver. They add Devin Smith, who's a big target, and obviously Brandon Marshall. For the first time, he's got a legitimate team. And you look, the Jets, although the front office is completely different and the coach is completely different, the Jets gave terrible, but he still had a good team. So I see Geno taking this job.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Geno will get the job because I don't think Petty's ready, and I think he's better than Fitzpatrick. I do think Petty will get at least one start during the year because Geno will get hit. The offensive line isn't too great. I think he may be injured or they might just try to change things up because I don't think the offense is going to be very good this year. So I think Petty gets at least one start, but I think Geno wins the battle.
Yeah, I think similar situation to what you said with Cleveland. You know, a lot of Jets fans wanted Bryce Petty. I had one friend that was on his Snapchat story after they didn't pick him in the 3rd round, yelling in his Snapchat story that he wanted Bryce Petty. But that was a common thought amongst a lot of Jet fans: get Bryce Petty in a late round and see what he becomes. So the fans want Bryce Petty. So if the Jets struggle, which it might actually, surprisingly, I'm saying this with the Jets, and I can't stand the Jets, it might be hard for them to struggle. You know, if Geno's playing half-decent football, you know, they have a good team around them. But if they do ultimately struggle, I think we see Petty for maybe 1 or 2 games at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, what's more surprising than Geno Smith? It would be more. I don't know what would be more surprising if Geno Smith had a great year, or you becoming the new biggest Jets fan.
That would probably be more surprising. The only time I've ever liked the Jets is when they had Favre.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like you're getting there. You picked them to win the division. You're picking Geno to be the starter and have a good year. So you're picking the other New York team now. You're leaving the Giants. You're picking the Jets.
Yeah. I recorded the last show in a Yankee hat. I'm all over the place.
Our last quarterback battle, and one that I think will be the most interesting, is the battle between the rookie quarterbacks. Which one do you think will have the best year?
So this is interesting. I think it will be Jameis Winston, purely because there's not the confusion with him. He's the starter for Tampa Bay. He's the franchise quarterback for Tampa Bay. No question about it. Plus, he's got Mike Jackson. I mixed up 2 of their receivers. Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans to boot. So, you know, the run game isn't as good as it could be. But at the same time, I think he'll have a better rookie year because he knows where he's going to be. He's signed, he's under contract, and he's got his jersey for Tampa Bay, and he's ready to go. Mariota doesn't know where he'll be playing, you know, if his name will be on a contract in 2 weeks. So,
yeah, I actually agree with you there, mainly because it seems like Mariota and Winston will be the only Week 1 starters. So I'd probably say Winston because he has more of a team around him. He doesn't have to do too much. He's got to hand the ball to Doug Martin, who's a very good running back, and just don't overthrow or underthrow 2 very, very good receivers in Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson. I agree exactly with what you said, and I think it will be Winston, even though if there was a third starting quarterback, I probably would have picked him.
Yeah.
All right, that will wrap us up for tonight. Monday Night Lights, we will finish up. I believe this is our 5th show, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think it's 5th.
So we have
Plus, we'll have the, I'm putting the finishing touches on the all-time team video, so we'll have that up this week.
Oh, very nice. Well, if you want to, keep sending them in. We have a 3rd one. I believe, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but his first name's Nick.
Nick Policastri.
Yeah, I guess he's your buddy. Very Italian last name. He sent in his team. It was a very good team. I believe we are all tied in voting, so that'll make it interesting. So keep on voting. Send your teams in. I just love seeing some of the teams people put together. I was talking to my dad tonight trying to get him to send in a team. So spread the word about the Monday Night Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Let us know what you think. We want to engage the listener, and we want to hear from you guys. So keep letting us know what you think, and keep tweeting at us, keep emailing us, vote, send in your all-time teams, and we'll just keep trying to give you good shows, good quality shows.
Keep bringing the news to you.
Yeah. All right, well, good show tonight, Lewis.
Good show, Tim.
We'll be back here next week, same time, like always. We're very reliable.
Consistent. We preach consistency here on Monday Night Lights.
Yeah, you're listening to Monday Night Lights with Tim Hoffmeister and Lewis Schaefer on SoundCloud, YouTube, maybe the website. Wherever you're listening to it, we have many ways. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.